Hey everyone, so in this week's episode of Make It with Calvin, I'm doing things a little bit differently. I got two cameras, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to take the video signal from your GoPro, or really any other camera for that matter, and send it on over to your LCD monitor. So let's get started. Now, if you're like my Hero 2 and you have a little plug that you can put a pre-made cable into, you're in luck. You can pick them up pretty cheaply off eBay, and you can skip the rest of the video until I explain how to power the LCD monitor. If you have a Hero 3 or any other camera that uses the USB port as a combination video out and power jack, then I'll explain how to work around that. If you go on eBay, you can find these USB adapter cables, a dime a dozen, and this one I don't exactly recommend buying because it has the printed circuit board exposed and it's not as strong. Get one with a plastic case. I'll have a link to the one that I'm using for this in the description. This is just an older one that I had kicking around. They're not going to come usually with an RCA connector on the end, which is this. But while you're on eBay or Amazon or wherever, pick up one or two of these, and the solder job on this is really simple. The black cable runs to the outside, which is the shield or the ground, and the white cable runs to the middle, which is the signal. On the inside, the signal is a short connector, short solder pad, my bad, and the outside is a long solder connector. And if you're not sure, you can find photos all over Google. I might even throw one up in here. You'll also notice a red and black cable. Now this is where things get interesting. And I'm going to put in a disclaimer right now that from this point on, you probably should know a little bit about what you're doing before you proceed. But, you know, disclaimers are disclaimers. What you can do is with the red and black cables, you can hook them up to what's called a BEC, or a battery eliminating circuit. This is a device that is used commonly in radio-controlled vehicles to take whatever your battery pack's voltage is and drop it to a level that your onboard electronics can work with. Usually that's 5 volts. Well, this is great for us because the GoPros and other USB powered devices run off 5 volts. This is key to running your camera for a long term in the field, although there are a couple precautions you should probably take. First things first, if your BEC has a power selector, in this case it's this, set it to 5 volts. I don't want to know what happens if you dump 6 volts into a GoPro or any other camera. You can find out on your own, but I don't take any responsibility for you finding that out. I wouldn't recommend doing it though. On the input side, which would be this, I've sadly had to remove the battery connectors for a different project, but you would solder your appropriate battery connectors on here, and this is where your input voltage goes in, magic happens in here, 5 volts comes out here, powers your camera. The reason why this is really handy is, as anybody who's filmed the GoPro knows, they sadly seem to run out of power at the worst possible moment. It's never fun. So having this ability to charge in the field is super nice. So now that you have the power on your GoPro part figured out, if you decide to do that, the other thing is how are you going to power the monitor? In the case of both of my monitors, they take a 12 volt input because they are vehicle backup monitors. And for this, if you're filming indoors, you can always plug into a 12 volt power supply, job done. If you're in the field, obviously you're going to want to run on battery power. To power this, which is actually driving both monitors, I'm using a 12 volt 3-cell lithium battery pack that's a 3000 milliamp, which is total overkill, but it's what I have kicking around that I use in my tricopter. And I like the extra mass underneath the rig to make it more stable, so hey, you know, who cares? What you're going to want to do is either either cut the power cable, warning, voids any warranty that you have, and run the power straight into the camera that way through a battery, which is what I've done. Or you can solder onto the end of the battery cable and use the jack as a little power switch. Oh, crap. Whoops. We just had almost a fire breakout on set. Wow. I'm keeping that in the video just to show that you do want to be careful. My gosh, this thing is hot. I mean, seriously, this thing is like the wires. Wow. That's scary. Oh, gosh, can't think after that accident. Ooh, scary. Okay. So if you guys are wondering what just happened, I accidentally shorted out the cables that run the monitor at the battery side. So don't worry, the cable that comes with it is fine. That was completely my fault, being stupid. So moving on, make sure you don't short out the cables on your monitor. That's a bad idea. In the case of the GoPro rig for the Maker Faire, the battery connector was a very loose fit inside the jack, which was a pain. So, and I couldn't source a proper jack that fit it at the local Radio Shack. None of the stuff that they had fit it. Got handed to the manager for actually being nice enough to try and find ones. Couldn't find any. So I just went ahead and cut the power cable and soldered a Dean's plug directly on it. Obviously, if you do this, you avoid any potential warranties on your camera. LCD, but being that they're only about 15 bucks shipped, it was a gamble I was willing to take. So with that said, once you've figured out a power source, figured out how to put everything together, you're pretty much good to go. My one bit of advice, if you are running a BEC or really any external power supply to your GoPro, is make sure you have a simple way to shut the power off, as these can actually charge, especially a 3 amp version, can charge your GoPro faster than you think. And they tend to get kind of hot when they're sitting there getting power they don't need. And that's probably not gonna do your camera a bunch of good if it gets extremely hot. If you're really unlucky, it might even shut down due to internal temperature safety cutoffs. One way that you can control the power is, in my case, I just had some Dean's plug soldered on the end of here. So I'd physically have to plug this into the battery when the monitor wasn't being used, or you could jumper both of these off the battery connection and put, say, a switch in line or something like that. Things to keep in mind. So I hope you guys found this episode of Make It With Calvin slightly entertaining when I totally screwed up on camera. But that aside, I hope this kind of sort of clears up some of the confusion and questions people had regarding how in the world this whole setup works. If you have questions, please leave them down below and I'll do my best to get back to you about them. I might do a Q&A video if things weren't super clear and you guys had a bunch of actually video-worthy questions, if you understand what I mean. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time on Make It With Calvin, and don't go shorting wires out. It's not a good idea.